Alaska Governor Sarah Palin and her campaign manager and mail technician, Dina.
Hi, how are you? Oh my gosh, you all look so... Dina, come on. Dina, come on. Dina, come on. Everyone, I'm Alaska Governor Sarah Palin, and this is my campaign manager, cousin, nail technician, La Leche League liaison, Pilates coach, jazzercise coach, colonic aqua therapist. That's an amateur position. And karate supervisor, Dina Heath-Barr.
Hi.
Hi. Yeah. Hey. I'm so excited to be here at just an organization, at a group, at a what are we at?
It's a bunch of elite media
liberal, gay, homosexual Jews. Yes? Is that?
It's kind of like what the rapture is going to look like.
Yeah.
After the rapture.
Just a bunch of homosexual Jews waiting in a Christian church.
Waiting.
Just
wishing that they had made better decisions.
Yeah. Waiting for directions.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah. Did they hear? I thought this was going to be the meeting of the Alaska Moose Hunters for Life.
That's tomorrow.
Okay, great. So we're so excited to be here. We have a message for Mr. Malcolm Gladwell. I don't know if he's in the audience, but let me tell you something. You might blink, but we don't.
Yeah.
I don't blink. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Elitist Media. Thank you.
Yeah. She doesn't produce tears.
No, I don't. That's because I don't produce emotions. That's also part of that. So we're just so excited to be here. We love your liberal rag. It's just filled with all sorts of hilarious untruths. And we just hope that you enjoy the entire panel, which is filled with many white people, much like yourselves. So it's good to know that you liberals continue your devotion to diversity. And we hope that you just have a wait, we forgot. Do you have... I'm sorry, I can't make a public appearance without this. I'm sorry. Can you do that? Can you put it on? Can you put it on. Okay. Thank you. Have a wonderful evening.
They're all going to hell.
Hi, I'm Susan Morrison. I'm the articles editor of The New Yorker. And on behalf of the magazine, I'm happy to welcome you to the annual New Yorker Festival and to this panel on political humor. I'd also like to thank Governor Palin and her nail technician for stopping by. Also thank their alter egos, Sarah Benincasa and Diana Saez. And they're the creators of Sarah Palin's vlog, which can be found at the website 236. So we'll be up here talking for about 90 minutes, which will include a 15-minute question and answer session. And before we start, I'd like to ask you to turn off your cell phones, please, and also to say that I guess photography is not allowed, in case you want photos of any of these folks. But, now, we keep hearing all the time these days that a growing percentage of Americans get their news from sources of political satire, what Jon Stewart has taken to calling the satiro-industrial complex. And if that's true, then the people here on stage with me are their generation's Cronkites and Edward R. Murrows. So let me introduce them. Samantha Bee, as you know, is a completely... fearless correspondent for The Daily Show, where she's been since 2003. Andy Borowitz is the creator of the Borowitz Report, the award-winning daily online column, the author of a bunch of funny books, and a regular contributor to The New Yorker. Allison Silverman. Is the executive producer of the Colbert Report, and she was also on the writing staffs of Late Night with Conan O'Brien and The Daily Show. Now, Todd Hanson.
John Oliver. I was in The Love Guru.
Todd Hanson has been a writer and editor at The Onion since 1990. And Jim Downey here. Started as a writer for Saturday Night Live in 1976 and has been there for 27 of the show's 32 seasons. He took a brief break to be the head writer for Late Night with David Letterman in its first 2 seasons. Jim's...
Just such an unimpressive resume.
My first job in New York was as his assistant. It's true. But,
hence, invitation.
Jim's also a performer, and you've probably seen him in movies ranging from Billy Madison to There Will Be Blood. Now, I feel like, even without the warm-up act, I feel like we don't have much of a choice but to start with Sarah Palin. You know, in a year when we have the first black candidate, the oldest non-incumbent candidate, and a vice presidential candidate who has bad hair plugs and is prone to embarrassing gaffes, it's kind of amazing that they're all being upstaged by a sitcom mom. But I'd love to ask you guys, do you view Sarah Palin as a gift from the comedy gods, or is it like shooting fish in a barrel? Samantha, why don't you
Didn't you feel like when you first said Sarah Palin that the entire crowd went like this? Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. That's how I felt anyway. I don't know. You know, it's a kind of a dangerous gift. I don't feel personally like, you know, I mean, there's a lot of material there, but I would never say that having great material would be preferable to having the country go even further down the toilet than it may.
People have been asking versions of that question since Dan Quayle. Mm-hmm. And the answer is always, it may be like shooting fish in a barrel, but there's obviously a lot more important things to do than shoot fish in barrels, especially when they're in charge of like nuclear arsenals. It's a little frightening.
You know, I remember the day, my wife and I were on vacation on the day that she was picked, and she was announced. I remember everybody was so surprised that they had chosen Sarah Palin, but I actually had read about her in the Book of Revelations.
It did not come as a surprise.
She's in there right after the 4 Horsemen of the Apocalypse and right before the Antichrist. You know, I'm baffled by the reaction of people that love her. A lot of people love her, and I was trying to figure out why, and I heard a woman on the radio saying, she has 5 kids, and that's awesome. And it's like, you know, I think there are probably a lot of parents in the audience here, and I just don't think we should ever mistake having children for a genuine accomplishment. I just think, I mean, it depends on the kid. I mean, Bristol doesn't seem exceptional. She seems maybe a little precocious, but not exceptional anyway. So I don't know. I don't know if I guess I agree with Samantha that, you know, George Bush was also a gift from the comedy gods. It's been like an 8-year-long YouTube clip, you know. Mm-hmm. But I think I'd rather like have a country that's run well.
Well, I feel like I've also heard. I mean, during the Lewinsky scandal, I know that there were a lot of, you know, comedy writer pals who felt that Monica also. I mean, yes, she certainly didn't have her finger near the button the way Sarah Palin does, but that was also
what button?
That was also shooting fish in a barrel. Just sort of too obvious, too easy. I mean, is it much more fun to aim at targets that are subtler and? I mean, Jim, you have a sketch on tonight's show about the.
As of right now, I do. We have a dress rehearsal
about the bailout rather than Palin. I mean, is that a more challenging and fun thing?
I agree with the panel as far as my judgment of her qualifications. As comedy, I always get nervous with stuff that looks like gold but could be fool's gold. You know, that there's going to be so swarmed around and done to death that I mean, if she should be elected, it's going to be 4 years of jokes that have already been done by now.
About Dan Quinn.
Yes,
yeah.
Exactly. And so that, I mean, I have to say, to me, it's. I remember after Bush Gore, like people were coming up to me and to commiserate, were saying like, well, at least you got the right comedy choice, and I actually felt, geez, no, I actually thought Gore would have been much richer and more interesting to have, because then you end up with variations on the dumb guy or the creepy guy, and Gore was a whole other thing. Sarah Palin, I mean, the big surprise was that, I mean, I knew a little bit about her, just her record that you can read in the Almanac of American Politics, but it doesn't go into the stuff we're talking about, and that was the big surprise. The first time I heard her talk, it's, wow, there's never been anyone who ran for office that talks that way. I have a feeling that even by the time the election's over, I'm pretty sure she's not going to be our next vice president, but I think that we will be tired of Sarah Palin comedy. That's my hunch.
But let's enjoy it while we have it.
Yeah, no reason not to.
It's one of those rare moments.
Now, Andy invested in a very expensive John Kerry wig last time around.
I sure
that
did.
Ended up,
I was pulling for him. I mean, I thought that, but as sort of for the same reasons Jim had. I mean, it's like I thought that John Kerry would have been a hilarious. I mean, I do unfortunately look a little bit like him, so I was sort of pulling for that. I was going to do this whole imitation of him, but. I mean, he has the crazy wife who uses lots of swear words, and that would have been fun, and just wasn't meant to be.
Now, each one of you does slightly different things with the news in terms of your lead times, what your end product is. I wonder if you could each tell us a little bit about your process. I mean, when I'm sure you were all watching the debate on Thursday night, and I mean, I know Andy, gets something on his website probably within hours, and I know that Allison and Samantha, you didn't have a show until Monday. Jim has a show tonight, and I don't know how quickly you put something up, Todd. But how do you, what do you do as you're watching this? Do you start collaborating with people?
That's a good question, because the difference between, I mean, sometimes the difficult thing about being part of the satiro-industrial complex is you sometimes feel that you're almost part of the problem, in that the political world today is so geared to, what happened yesterday, and it's going to come out today, and what happened this morning, and let's blog about it by noon, and then find something new to blog about by 3, and it has created a situation where nobody's really ever discussing the politics of long-term things, and everything can kind of become a distraction. We certainly do topical humor at The Onion, but we try to do, if at all possible, stuff that isn't necessarily tied to the 24-hour news cycle. You have to excuse my voice. I'm sorry. I've actually been debating Sarah Palin for the last week, and she keeps you on your toes so much. It's so hard to debate her. So I'm kind of losing my voice, but I had pitched a headline for The Onion, and it was election shocker. Experts reveal the last 2 years of polling coverage doesn't actually affect the election. You feel so bad for someone like Hillary Clinton, who was out there campaigning and campaigning and campaigning for 2 years, and it's absolutely irrelevant to what happens on that Tuesday. I really would like to see, I don't know how it could be done, but some way for people to pay attention to politics, maybe not for 2 years of 1 day or 1/2 day each, but maybe 3 months of, let's talk about the next 4 years. I don't know if anyone agrees with me about that.
I totally agree with you, but I think that after elections are over, that tends to dissipate a little bit. But I know exactly. I remember there was the kind of stuff that you guys do. You may even have done this one, but there was a great thing. The Onion had got an old photo, stock photo of like a really ordinary 50s family, and it was just like a white dad, dad and mom and some kids, and the thing was like Simmons' family blasted for lack of diversity. Yeah. I mean, and that's not like a one-day joke or a one-week joke. That's like a period of political, that's an epoch. And that's the kind of stuff that I myself like to do, because for one thing, you get more interesting ideas, and you don't have everyone doing the same jokes at the same time, which I think is, you get like traffic jams with, with Sarah Palin, and not that I haven't seen some wonderful stuff, but I'm sort of...
On the other hand, the season opener for SNL this year, we were just talking about backstage. I mean, it may have saved the election. We don't know. Well, but it was one of the most wonderful things that's happened.
That was Tina Fey.
No, I was aware that it wasn't you.
I had to make that. Yeah, I want to make that clear.
Now, so Allison, when you watch the debate on Thursday night, are you immediately on the phone with your writers, or do you come in the next morning and figure out what are we going to do for Monday, and is it going to be stale by Monday?
We definitely had a different experience with it because we didn't have a show the next day. I think if we have a show the next day, it's very much about, like, I am pretty low tech with this. I'm just sitting with a notebook and pausing and writing down when someone says something, and then I forget that I'm using my DVR, and so the time code is not the same as the time code at work, and everything gets screwed up. But it's really, I'm just writing down things that catch my eye, and if you have it up the next day, you're really often working from just really quick sound bites. As I think it's the same, just as Todd was saying, you're having instant reactions. And by the way, I think Sarah Palin was very brave to come out against Holocausts on Thursday night.
Oh, that was great.
I thought that was impressive.
I did that months ago.
I don't know.
I correct. She only said she was against another Holocaust. She didn't. I mean, let's.
It's true. But on Thursday night, since we had a few days, there's more of a time to digest and sort of see things, sort of trends. And one of my favorite sort of things that's sort of happening, I feel like, in different topics, is that exchange about climate change, where the answer is no, I'm not ready to say that man is responsible for climate change. However, the solution is clearly to stop greenhouse gas emissions, et cetera, which is the same thing I feel like is going on with, like, deregulation, not responsible, but obviously we need to regulate, So that, I think we've got some stuff where we're starting to notice patterns, but if it's the next day, it's very quickly like, here's the soundbite that struck us as funny. And I also like that she mentioned the Castro brothers. They should be holding pineapples. And
Actually, I think so we don't run out of time, we're going to look at the first clip now, because we're going to have clips from all of these people. The first clip is from the Colbert Report.
McCain himself is famously reticent about his Vietnam experience. He only mentions it when people ask unrelated questions.
Senator John McCain, for $1 million, how many houses do you have?
Could I just mention to you, Jay, that in a moment of seriousness, I spent 5.5 years in a prison cell I didn't have a house. I didn't have a kitchen table. I didn't have a table. I didn't have a chair.
You were roundly criticized for not being able to remember the number of homes you own. How is that possible?
I spent some years without a kitchen table, without a chair.
Powerful stuff. Nation, if McCain is elected, his first appointment to the bench may be a chair. And I think if there is any lingering confusion about what questions are off limits, just consult this helpful pamphlet from the McCain campaign. How dare you question John McCain on noun that's bothering you? When he was a POW, he didn't have same noun. Booby. Okay. Now, the McCain campaign now is even more unquestionable thanks to Sarah Palin.
the Democrats piled all over her in vicious, personal, sexist attacks.
I find the attacks unprecedented, insulting, degrading, sexist. Do you find some of the comments about her demeaning? Because I do.
The pig deal is now morphing into a sexist situation.
It is sexist, and we should know. We've been feminists for over 2 weeks now. And who among us, who can ever forget Obama's sexist description of the Republican mantle of change?
You can put lipstick on a pig. It's still a pig.
You bastard. Might I remind you, Senator Obama, that McCain's running mate is Sarah Palin. Palin is from Alaska. Alaska's second largest city is Fairbanks. Douglas Fairbanks was a silent movie star. Stars burn hydrogen into helium. Breathing helium makes your voice high. High voices belong to women. Women wear lipstick. Ergo, you called Sarah Palin a pig. You, sir, are sexist. Now, I know what you women-hating liberals are going to say. Hey, McCain said the same thing about Hillary's health care policy.
I think they put some lipstick on the pig, but it's still a pig.
How dare you question McCain's use of a common aphorism? That man spent 5.5 years as a POW. He didn't have lipstick or a pig. Now, if the press wants access to Sarah Palin, they need to play by the new rules. McCain campaign manager Rick Davis laid down the law.
Until at which point in time we feel like the news media is going to treat her with some level of respect and deference, I think it'd be foolhardy to put her out into that kind of environment.
Well, you just said that. Yes, it would be foolhardy to put a candidate clearly ready to be commander-in-chief into a room with a prickly reporter from the Kansas City Star. So, nation, if you have an interest in being outraged, then you have a great ticket. But if you want to question your leaders, how dare you? And that's the word. We'll be right back.
That is so great. You know, watching this, it makes you realize that you have a completely different set of rules than everybody else here because you're writing for character. You know, you're writing for character. You don't have to be remotely right. You know?
Right.
Which must give you some more leeway than.
Yeah, it does. In that case, that's a good example of like when we feel opposition to an idea, we actually generally have to express it through agreeing with the idea and agreeing it into its extreme point where it clearly makes no sense, which is sort of an interesting kind of hall of mirrors to be in sometimes.
It's like a parlor game, kind of thinking in reverse.
Yeah, right? Yeah, exactly. And actually, with the bailout, it's been kind of confusing because certainly when the show started, there was a really sort of monolithic right wing, and now we had this point where we're, you know, Stephen's character was very behind the president, and now you have this, you know. At first, we wanted absolutely to agree with the president and agree with the idea that Henry Paulson would have no oversight, et cetera. And then we were finding, wait, but these House Republicans and the Lou Dobbs of the world don't want that. It was very, we had to really migrate his opinion a bit and try and figure out what it was. And it's been harder in sort of finding our way once that, once
right, you're usually doing a straightforward, what would Jesus do, kind of what would Steve do thing, and it's more complicated.
Yeah.
Now, what do you all think in general of this notion that's become a truism that people get their news from things like The Daily Show and the Colbert Report? And do you think that's true, or is that just media nonsense?
I just don't think that people would find our show funny if they were getting our news from the show. They have to be getting the news from somewhere in order to get the jokes. I mean, how would you... I don't think that you would understand or enjoy the show at all if you didn't know a little bit about what was going on in the world. I think it would be terribly confusing, and maybe you would watch it with no sense of irony, and then you would be lost, and you would change the channel. And I mean, you
would believe that Stephen Colbert was... Excuse me, was Bill O'Reilly, and actually,
we do meet people. I mean, we do meet people out in the world when we're interviewing people who have no sense for our show, and when they know that we're coming to interview them, they watch it, and they're like, I don't even understand. I didn't think there were any jokes. There were no jokes. What is this show? And, you know, they just have a completely different worldview. But they just don't, you know, they don't have the background to really kind of...
You know, I got to say, like, I think it's maybe a misconception when people talk about The Daily Show as a fake news show. I mean, it's a real news show. They're showing clips that are from the real news, and what it really is a show that has the real news and a funny point of view, which is better than, I mean, CNN is undeniably hilarious.
Yeah.
But the absence of a point of view, or the purported absence of point of view, is maddening, because for every issue, they always have to, first of all, they do this thing now where they bring on somebody from the left and from the right, and before anybody, you know, it's like Paul Begala, you know, who's, you know, Clinton guy, and they say, and they'll say beforehand, and Paul Begala is, by the way, an Obama supporter.
Right.
Shocking. That is really great information. But they have to have like this opposition of two points of view on every topic, even though sometimes, you know, on some subjects, there really aren't two equally good points of view. That is, you know, that's often the case.
And now they have, like, after the debate, like 2 whole dining room tables. It's like 52 pickup in there. There's like everyone screaming out. And gosh, actually watching that was really maddening, thinking how much work we put into 22 minutes. And it's like an hour and a half of people just calling things out.
Well, as we just saw with those clips, I think that really, I mean, aside from brilliant comedy writing, one of the most valuable things in your shows is the really amazing use of archival clips, the kind of quick cutting together to showing politicians contradict themselves and, you know, saying one thing one day. And I mean, you know, there's no reason the network news couldn't do that kind of gotcha stuff, but they just wouldn't. And you know,
I don't really necessarily think that. Excuse me, I'm so sorry. I should add, by the way, I'm not actually from Texas. I have just found that especially if there's an audience with cameras like there is today, if I pretend I'm from Texas, people lend me credibility they wouldn't otherwise. So that's why I'm doing this. But I don't think that it's that people get their news from comedy. I think that what they do is they get their critical thinking about the news from comedy. And I think that says a lot more against the rest of the media than it does for the comedians. You know, it's really sad that the technology and the mechanisms of the journalism today are such that, at least in television, and in many cases in print as well, comedians are more equipped to provide critical thinking about the news than the news is. That's very disappointing. My other response, though, was just to say that when people talk about people getting their news from comedy, I'm much more worried about how many people are getting their entertainment from the news than people who are getting their news from entertainment, because the news has become so based on, like I said, a 24-hour news cycle of entertaining distractions as opposed to actual analysis or even discussion of politics. We can look back on 2 years of talking about politics, and very little of it had anything to do with politics. It had to do with following the election, like you would follow sports. You know, who's winning, who's losing, who's up in the polls, who's down in the polls. There's a lot of commentary about commentary. There's very little actual thinking about politics in the process. I think there's a lot of people who consider themselves news junkies, or even political news junkies, who don't actually think about politics very often because it's actually not in what they're paying attention to. What they're paying attention to is a sort of little Super Bowl that happens, you know, where you start at the beginning of the football season, you go to the end, and at the end somebody wins, and that's the end.
I consider myself a heroin junkie, and I think that's a much safer way to go.
Yeah, but I mean, the difference is that at the end of the football season, the Super Bowl is supposed to be the end, whereas the election is supposed to be the beginning. And instead, it's just like we arrive there and then we start over again next year. I mean, that's definitely what happened with the 2006 election. The 2008 presidential election began the day after the 2006 congressional election.
Well, I think that speaks to, I mean, it's not, people talk about how there's so much fake news, so many fake news shows, there's a lot of fake news. And it's not really because, Sarah Palin notwithstanding, the events in the news are so much more outlandish. I think it's because we have this culture, this 24-hour news culture, where the news has become like music. The news is all around us all the time. I mean, it didn't used to be like that. There's just news on, all different kinds of news. And I mean, I think very often with what all of you guys do, what I'm laughing at isn't the joke about Paulson or whatever. It's the parody of the news vehicle. It's like the way The Onion, uses the phrase "area man" or hilarious journalistic, plot.
A lot of what you end up doing is making fun of
the news
of the media,
itself.
rather than having a satire about a political question. I mean, the simple fact is, politics is boring. The reason it's boring is because you need to read several paragraphs in a row in order to understand what it's about. It doesn't distill down into little, humorous sound bites. And
there you go again, Todd.
But unfortunately, there's not a lot of people. I mean, there's not a lot of magazines like the New Yorker, is the sad fact.
Really long articles.
And, where you need to begin at the beginning and actually continue to read for 30 minutes before you're done. Unfortunately, 30 minutes is about the minimum amount of time that it takes to actually understand anything substantive about politics. So as comedians, our job is just to kind of point out the silliness of all the rest of it.
Well, another thing, go ahead.
Well, when you said, I was about to say something that was that people, I don't think people get their information from comedy shows, but they more and more seem to be getting like their point of view, especially the way they analyze politicians. It seems to me that I'd take a big study to prove this, but like one of the things that probably all of us do when we dump on somebody is one variation or another of hypocrisy, and I swear that 25 years ago that probably wouldn't have been a big issue to people, that you expect that politicians are, they're for war, if it say means defending an ally, but they're against it if it's defending someone they don't care about, and that's and it just seems, because what we do, one of the big features that you can distill out of all the comedy is just slam cuts of it's white to it's black, to make the and I do think that that definitely the way people, when I hear people talking politics, they're echoes of like the kind of points that were driven home because they were funny, that wouldn't have had any of that kind of impact otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
I also have a suspicion about the real news, that they're concerned about access, just like that Rick Davis quote, and we have sort of the advantage of knowing there's no way in hell anyone real is going to talk to us. So it doesn't matter.
Right.
But yet you do get a surprising number of people
Yeah,
who will wander onto your set.
Yeah. If it's anyone really real, they demand that it be scripted, we haven't gotten a chance to talk to someone who has something to lose without a script. But, yeah.
Now, we're going to take a look at a quick PowerPoint presentation of Andy's site now. Oh, here we go.
This is an example of me piling on Sarah Palin while she's here, and so pardon me for the hacky nature of that. That's self-explanatory. I guess what it was is that what I do is a little bit different on my side. I like to predict what's going to happen as opposed to report on stuff or make fun of stuff that's already happened. And I guess this was John McCain had seen Sarah Palin's interview with Katie Couric, and he said, "Damn it, a startled deer could do better than that." And so his staff drew up a short list of startled deer, and they found Bucky the red deer, who has been a great replacement. Oh, shall we move on to the next one?
Yeah, let's just scroll through.
Yeah. Again,
All right.
Let's move on.
Come on. We can just...
You know, when...
Okay.
Okay, next. He sure is old. All right, let's move on to the next one. And that's another related. All right, let's keep rolling. Let's keep rolling. This I actually... I kind of have, you know, people say it's hard to make fun of Obama, but I actually think there's a lot of funny stuff going on around Obama. Like, I mean, I do think like the liberal blogs like Daily Kos and people like that who, you know, say, fuck you, man, you know, you're selling us out, you know, keep it real. You know, it's just hilarious. Like, you know, I guess they really don't feel he would be a very good president for liberals. You know, he's not liberal enough. So, I don't know. It's interesting. That's very actually just reporting the truth, I think, that story. Let's move on. That's another one that's kind of true. I'm just reporting fact there. Yeah. The numbers are not good among races at all. Let's move on. Yeah, that also happened, apparently. That turned out to be true. Okay, let's move on to another one. Okay, let's go on to the next one. Okay, that was an unfortunate quote that no one else picked up on. I don't know. Sorry to see him go. All right, let's move on to another one. Yes, that was an initial reaction to Sarah Palin's pick. Okay, another one. Let's see. Yeah, that was perennial, evergreen story about Ralph Nader. Okay, move on. Yeah, this is when he was accused of plagiarism. See, I'm making fun of Obama there, right? I mean, you can make fun of Obama. Okay, let's move on. My wife actually inspired this because my wife was at the gym and was watching Bush. It was when the market was in some turmoil and Bush got on, and she just noticed that the numbers of the Dow just kept on going. So it's like that was just reporting the news. Let's move on. Yeah, this was just he was constantly getting in trouble for people assuming he was a Muslim and Reverend Wright. So this seemed like a good middle ground for him. He changed his name to Barack Obama. And I think that's it. I think that's it.
You've had at least a couple of situations where the mainstream press has picked up your stories and thought that they were true, and right? I mean, wasn't there a?
Yeah, there was.
What I'm thinking of.
You know, there've been a number of ones. There was one I did about I guess it was in 2006 during the fall elections, and I did the headline was about Karl Rove, and it was the headline was Satan Rove plot GOP strategy, and it was all about, you know, Satan and Rove having a press conference like at this Hyatt in Chicago, and you know, and you know, it was like Satan was wearing his red cape and horns, and Rove was there, and I think it was published by the St. Petersburg Times, which is a good newspaper, but it got picked up as a result by wire service and was all over the place. And I guess Karl Rove called the St. Petersburg Times to complain about it, but he said that he actually thought it was really funny, and I was
also
devastated.
Leave his number, probably.
Oh no!
What did you say?
Leave his number too.
Yeah, exactly.
The sad thing is he probably was just complimented.
Right.
That you would say that about him.
Now, Samantha, you had a situation also once, didn't you, where Bill O'Reilly took a clip of you doing something and used it on one of his tirades about the war on Christmas.
That's right. It was.
So,
That's right.
so
Oh my gosh.
Did he think that you were just like a regular news anchor doing?
Yeah. I think he referred to me as part of the liberal media, which I took as a compliment. And he used a clip of me doing a This Week in God. I think it was a This Week in God, or it was something Christmas related. And I was enormously pregnant. I was enormously pregnant in real life, and he used this clip of me, and the timeline was off by a year. And anyway, well, I've explained it really well. I've done a wonderful job of explaining it, but I can't even think of what I was about to say. Okay, ask me again. What?
Well, I think he used the clip of you in his war on Christmas tirade.
Yes, but the clip that he
media
used of me was
people
from
like you
the previous year. He used it kind of out of time. And how dare he take something out of context?
Well, now we're going to look at it.
Crazy.
So, if nothing else, at this panel today we have caught O'Reilly in a factual error.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So we have accomplished something there.
Okay. So let's look at a clip of Samantha now from The Daily Show.
Goodness.
Welcome back. Now, despite Governor Palin's star turn last night, there are still those who would cloud Governor Palin's candidacy with irrelevant issues. Our Samantha Bee hit the convention floor to find out more.
Last night, Sarah Palin took the stage and silenced her critics.
This woman is qualified.
Tell me about her qualifications.
One, she's a beautiful lady.
She hunts and fishes and is not afraid to get her hands dirty.
She's only that far from Russia, from those eyes of Putin.
One of the things that I really respect about Sarah Palin is that she makes Americans feel like anyone can be president.
But there's one issue for which she's still being unfairly attacked.
It's very inappropriate that the Democrats have seized on the issue of Bristol's pregnancy.
That is very personal, and I don't think that she should be attacked for that.
I think it's a family issue. Politics should stay out of people's business.
You do what's right. And, you know, she's going to have the baby. She's going to get married.
She said no. It's a human being.
She made... I'm sorry, what is... The decision. The decision. There's another word I'm looking for. It rhymes with... I think it rhymes with voice. Every family and every woman should have the right to... I'm sorry. What's the word I'm looking for? It's her family. It's her... Oh, God, what is the word? What is the word I'm looking for? It's like an alternative, or if you have two things, you be Sarah Palin and I'll be her 17-year-old daughter.
Bristol, you know, you and I have always been able to openly discuss things.
What do you want to talk to me about? I'm too busy right now, Mom. Can you get out of my room? It's like when you have a lot of options and you have to select one. What's the word I'm looking for? What is the word?
Adoption is one.
No, there's a specific word I'm looking for.
I'm sure the family will be able to make the best decision for them.
But they'll have the freedom to make that decision. Hold on a second. I'm talking to my boyfriend. Can I call you back? My mom is in my room. She wants to talk to me about something. Hold on. I'll call you back.
Well, yes, but I don't think that the decision, I think it should be not, I think that the family decision would become as how, yes, okay.
Oh my God, I totally hurt you. You're bothering me. Oh, do this to me.
It's, you know, when you have like an alternative, what's the word I'm looking for? Alternative.
A different choice?
Choice, yes, exactly. Every family, every person should have the choice to decide what's best for them.
You know, the left clamors for choice. We want to make choice. We want choice. And Sarah Palin's daughter has made a choice.
Freedom of choice? That's different than being pro-choice.
She's able to make the choice that she doesn't really want other people to have, right? Does that make sense?
Samantha, you're really the master of the man on the street interview. You know, getting people to say stupid things. I mean, what's the hardest question you ever asked somebody, or do people ever react like?
It was that piece in particular was one of the most difficult pieces I think I've ever done. Because it's such it's a personal issue for me, and I feel really strongly about choice. And You know, but people at this was at the Republican convention, obviously, and it's such a personal issue for people, and people who don't feel like other people should have a choice have a very strong opinion in that direction too, and they will literally talk your ear off nonstop. Like they just throw their shit on you. And I feel like for a whole day, people were just heaping stuff on me. It was very, very difficult. And it was so frustrating because it was like everyone at the convention got a memo that morning or a text message eradicating the word choice from their vocabulary. Like nobody would even say the word. I mean, it was incredible, and I had to give them props. I had to just say, you know what, you guys really get your message out to your constituents in a very effective manner, but it was just personally difficult for me. It was one of the most aggravating days I ever spent on the job, but a very satisfying conclusion.
Well, it's such a funny and devastating clip. But I wonder, do you ever worry that showcasing people's incredible ignorance or stupidity this way could play into the hands of the conservatives who hate people like us and everybody in this room and think that we're all
I don't really care.
Smug media
I don't really care. I don't really care. It's very personally satisfying, and I take a great pleasure in it. I really enjoy it. It's hard to do. It's a little bit like when you're, definitely I feel I'm definitely nervous when I start the day, and then I just have to get in there, and then I just go for it. It's a little bit like, when you're driving and you're about to do something really stupid, but you just accelerate anyway, and you just kind of feel this feeling in the pit of your vagina where you're just like, oh my God, I'm gonna do it. And then you just do it, and then in the end, everything seems to fall into place.
My favorite thing in that piece was when you suggested to the older lady that she role play with you, and she just went right into it. Bristol.
I know. Bristol. You and I have always had a good relationship. And I talked to her I talked to her for 20 minutes. I mean, that went on forever. We got a big crowd around us. People were like...
And do they know who you are, or are you just banking on them not knowing at all?
They don't really know. I mean, the Democratic convention is one thing. The Republican convention is a whole other animal. It's so much fun. I mean, it really is a lot of fun.
That moment also reminds me of something that was on SNL, and I hope I have the person right. I think it was a fellow named Andrew Steele, who was... Maybe I could be wrong on that.
He was a writer. He was
doing interviews with people, but he had no real microphone. And people would talk to him for minutes and minutes, and he didn't have. It was just going like this to someone.
Was that the convention?
Well, we did one time. We had there was a guy in the early years of Letterman. We had this guy that we called Larry Bud Melman, whose name was Calvert DeForest, and one time we had him greeting people getting off buses from New Jersey at the Port Authority, like an official greeter. And he did an extended 10-minute interview with the mic where it was like, so, how was the bus ride? And he got perfectly out of sync, and it went on forever. And we played like 7 minutes of it on the show. And the audience just continued laughing even though you could hear nothing. But
you can get, when you shine a camera at someone, you can pretty much get them to do whatever you want them to do. I mean, I've done so many. I mean, I've done it a million times, but it always cracks me up so much when we do a role play with a phone, and then and so we're like, okay, so answer your phone, and then we dial, and then we make them wait for the phone to ring, and then they pick up the phone, and these are governors. I'm just saying.
Now, halfway
governors
through,
aren't what they used to be.
Yeah, really.
Halfway through, do people sometimes kind of figure it out and then just turn and run, or does everyone go for it all the way?
There can be a point when people figure it out, but it's usually because we're a very low rent show. We only have one camera, and so we have to, we stay with when we're doing a one-on-one interview, we have the camera on them. And then, so we do the whole thing with them, and then the camera turns around, so they're not on camera anymore, and we do the same thing that we just did. We have to do it again. And so, kind of halfway through that experience where they're seeing me go like this, hold on, ring, ring, ring. Then they start to, you see that dawning realization that they're like, did I pick up an imaginary phone? And, I did. This is not good.
I was actually one time on the, in a weird way, on the receiving end where it got ugly. There was a thing on it was a long time ago. It was like, I'm going to say it was right after the Simpson murders out in L.A. It was like, so it was 94, and it was Memorial Day, or Labor Day weekend, when all the cable shows, you guys probably know, they can't get anyone. So Norm Macdonald was asked to host Geraldo Rivera's show. And I was his guest, and Norm said, well, my guest will be Jim Downey, and they couldn't get literally anyone else. So like they were, that'll be great. Who is that? And anyway, he didn't tell me about it, and the car came to pick me up. And they said, the limo will be there in half an hour. And I go, for what? You know, like, you're doing the Geraldo Rivera live show. What? What? And so anyway, on the ride over to Englewood, we improvised this bit where I came out, and the whole summer had been like Geraldo talking every night about the O.J. murders. And so Norm says, like, I'm going to have my guest tonight is a court watcher who, he says there's a case that's about to open in Los Angeles that is going to blow the roof off. And so I came out and I sort of was like, well, there was an athlete who I don't know the name. I will come up with the name. I want to say Joe Don. It's not important. Anyway, several people were injured, possibly killed. And like I did like about 3 minutes of this, and I go, baseball. It was a baseball. No. And then, anyway, well, the phones are lighting up. And so we're looking over, and I just saw the MSNBC people going, like, you ruined our show. And then the first thing was perfect. It was like, who is this fucking idiot? And then I'm, sir, I have not impugned your intelligence. And then the next 20 minutes were like people, like the angriest people I've ever dealt with. And had they been, because obviously no one's going to recognize me. So, I mean, I don't know if you've ever had but that was like, had they only been on the phone, had we not been in Englewood or wherever, Tenafly, wherever that is, I mean, we were in trouble just from the staff at MSNBC. But anyway.
But, I mean, I think this is the kind of thing that gets us accused of being liberal elitists. Because we're basically just sitting here mocking the stupidity of the human race.
That's what that was, for sure.
But the same thing happens at The Onion. The same thing happens everywhere. Because most people are really stupid. It's not our fault. And, I just wanted to say about Samantha's piece, that, when you said, is it difficult to get people to say these stupid things, it almost makes it seem like she's manipulating them into looking bad.
There's some of that.
Oh, sure. I mean, did you watch? I mean, I guess everybody was watching the debate, but I mean, on CNN, did you watch the CNN coverage? Because afterwards, then they had
all the thing with the
perception monitors. But really, afterwards, Soledad O'Brien interviewed a bunch of undecided voters, and I was like, I didn't really, I mean, just in terms of our coverage next week, I don't really care what we talk about with Sarah Palin, because that's going to be, we'll do coverage on Monday, but we really need to start looking at these undecided voters.
Samantha did a really amazing piece in the last election called The Undecided.
Well, I want to do another one.
Classic.
I couldn't believe, I mean, it was like
shouting at these voters.
It was like she was.
Why have you made up your mind?
Yeah!
How could you possibly not know you're going to vote?
Possibly. Shit or get off the pot. Please. But even more so this year, I can't take it anymore. I mean, it was like she was interviewing 12 halibut who had no knowledge of what was going on in the world. And I mean, it was incredible.
But the point I was trying to make is that is not Samantha's fault.
I know.
It's not like she's making them look dumb. They are dumb.
Come on.
And she's just pointing that out, but it's their fault. Right. The reason that people are laughing at them is not because she's making them look different than they are.
I hope we don't have any of those dumb people here today.
No,
I hope we're not offending anyone. Okay.
I mean,
they're at the New York Post Festival. Oh, cheap shot. Wouldn't that be awesome, by the way? They should have a festival.
Great idea.
I'd be there. I'd go.
Now we're going to look at a clip of SNL now. If we have it ready. Goes way back.
Mr. President, you said that the Humphrey-Hawkins bill will cost a possible $60 billion. Now, at the present rate of taxation on GNP of 39%, doesn't this come to about the same $60 billion in increased revenue?
It was my understanding that there would be no math during the debates.
You still have 50 seconds left, Mr. Vice President.
Well, let me just sum up. On track, stay the course, 1,000 points of light, stay the course.
Governor Dukakis, rebuttal.
I can't believe I'm losing to this guy.
Rob Reiner's latest film tells the story of a young, idealistic president who has not only a hostile Congress and a nasty Republican challenger to contend with, but has to raise a 12-year-old daughter on his own because, you see, his wife is dead. I love this movie.
When you were quiet there for an hour, that was world class. Showed you ain't just talk. You know, quiet man, a lot going on upstairs. Them others just went shooting their mouths off.
Who am I? Why am I here?
Mr. Vice President, during this campaign, you have frequently called the Bush tax plan a risky scheme. Why?
Well, Jim, Governor Bush and I have two very different plans to offer tax relief to American families. In his plan, the wealthiest 1% of Americans would receive nearly 50% of the benefits.
We are almost out of time, so I will instead ask each candidate to sum up in a single word the best argument for his candidacy. Governor Bush? Strategery. Vice President Gore?
Lockbox.
When you say crush the terrorist, how exactly do you plan to do that?
By working hard. Working Saturdays.
Each candidate will now make a brief closing statement. Senator Kerry.
You know, this president likes to talk about how I called Iraq the wrong war in the wrong place at the wrong time. That a few days later, how I said that anyone who doesn't think the world is a safer place without Saddam Hussein is not fit to be commander-in-chief. But what he doesn't tell you is that when I denounced the war in Iraq, I was speaking to an anti-war group. And when I endorsed the war, I was addressing a pro-war delegation from the UGA. The fact of the matter is, I have consistently supported the war in front of pro-war audiences and condemned it when speaking to groups that oppose it. That is not flip-flopping, that is pandering, and Americans deserve a president who knows the difference. Thank you.
This Sunday, Russia will elect the new prime minister to replace Vladimir Putin. What can you tell us about it?
Unfortunately, Tim, this election is a sham. After it's over, Putin will still be the one in charge, not his successor.
Of course. But who is this man? What's his name?
Dmitry
Medvedev. Senator Obama, same question.
Dmitry Medvedev.
Correct. Senator Clinton, Sri Lanka's deputy ambassador to the UN. Who is it?
It's Prasad.
It's a trick question. That post is currently vacant. Senator Obama.
I don't believe there is one at the moment.
Correct. For now, let's turn to the war in Iraq. Senator Obama, what has this war taught us?
Look, as you know, Jim, I opposed this war from the very beginning, when it was not the politically popular thing to do.
Yet, Senator, you voted against the surge, a strategy I've been arguing for since 1985. Long before anyone even thought of invading Iraq, I wanted to add more troops in case we ever did invade.
John, think about that for a moment. That doesn't even make sense.
Perhaps not to you, Senator, but that's because you're not a maverick.
Now, John, the fact is, the surge was itself a remedy for a series of failed military policies by this administration. policies which you initially supported, as you have supported this president 90% of the time.
Jim, my opponent knows that's not true. I've never supported President Bush. I have undermined President Bush. Just ask any Republican. I have always been disloyal to this president, a disloyal, unreliable, untrustworthy renegade who has abandoned my party whenever it most needed me. The fact is, you simply can't count on John McCain. That's why on November 4th, the American people will elect me their next president.
Wow. So, what? I mean, this is so great because it goes back so many administrations. What administration was the most fun to do this to?
I guess with Bush, because of the war in Iraq, there were more things going on. But I would say definitely not because Bush was like a dumb guy. I mean, that sort of got old fast, I thought. But just with the war, there was, even though it was 8 years, and you did sort of get tired of. We had two Bushes on display just in that one montage, but Will Ferrell left, and then I think like 5 or 6 people have done Bush on our show, but that's what you get when someone's in office for 2 terms. The others, we missed half of Reagan's. At least my little group missed half of Reagan's term. That's why he's not represented, and we had a piece that I cut from it. But
and also he wasn't possible to make fun of.
Yeah,
there's nothing funny about Ronald Reagan.
We never cracked that one.
I don't know why everyone acts like that now. Everyone acts like Reagan was some sort of Christ-like figure, And, I mean, I was around when Reagan was the president. He was a joke, and I wish that people would acknowledge that. Reagan was a joke. I'm just saying.
It's so interesting.
He was a doddering, senile joke. Just want to make that clear. Please finish your sentence.
Well, I was going to say he was a very great man. So, now I'm questioning. You've made me doubt everything I ever thought I once knew. No, I just to answer. I just think that there was so much going on over the last 8 years that. We were always able. I mean, that's of course the period that all of you guys have been, doing your stuff. So we could have a time. I think Obama might be a lot tougher. For one thing, I mean, I don't know what it'll be like to a president whose issue positions are more in line with, especially more than any other. I mean, people could be angry at Clinton for screwing things up by not reining in his instincts, or with another Democrat who might have sold out. The ideas you thought he favored, but Obama is highly unlikely. I mean, there may be some people who attack him from the left, but I mean they're going to be pretty hard to please, I would think. But and this probably gets into a discussion about how easy it will be to do Obama. I think it's going to be pretty tough. I mean, I think we've all done things around him. Andy, you had, I know what you meant when you said that. I did a thing last spring about. Well, there was a little bit of that hinted at in this clip about that. I mean, the media is kind of madly in love with him. I don't think you can like Obama and still agree with that statement. And he also is such a smooth character that he doesn't give you many handles.
I think that one thing, I think there are funny things actually about him too, though. I think the fact that every time he speaks, it's always very soaring rhetoric. I mean, I think that after a while gets kind of almost becomes a caricature of itself. Like, I don't know if you saw his speech at the convention, and he said, I met a man in Indiana who lost his job. I met a college student in Iowa who lost her job and her health insurance. And I met a woman in Pennsylvania who lost her job, her health insurance, and her house. And I was like, dude, you spread bad luck wherever you go. I mean, all those states, you meet one guy who got like a new flat screen or something? I mean, come on.
Right.
But it's also like, the other thing that I enjoy are the ubiquity of the catchphrases. Obama has more catchphrases than, like, a sitcom character. It's like, and I actually, just for fun, I started using them around the house just to see how they would work. Like the other night, my wife said, "We can't have sex tonight," and I said, "Yes, we can." And I started chanting it over and over again because I have the audacity of hope.
We had a little clip on our show, a series of pieces from one of his speeches where he was, talking about we're going to bring together blue states and red states and poor people and wealthy people. And then we started noticing that the trope of stressing the and between a few things, between two vast nouns. So we put together this montage of all the things he wanted to bring together. And it became red states and blue states, poor people and wealthy people, genocide and poverty.
No, there definitely is this sense, and we saw this after, we had this cover by Barry Blitt on the magazine a couple of months ago, that, when Bill Carter wrote a really smart piece on the front page of the Times the next day, his takeaway from it was that people felt, and Jon Stewart did a terrific show the next day where he talked about this too, where people seemed to feel afraid of or reluctant to want to poke fun at Obama in any way. And is it you wonder, part of it is this is a candidate that we just really love for the first time in years, and everyone is worried about upsetting the apple cart, or is everybody walking on eggshells?
I think people are just really afraid that we're not ever going to have a good president in our lifetimes.
I want to say something, too, which is that I think there's a lot of protection out there for racists. To be honest, I'm really surprised how people won't use the word racist. You'll hear Tom Brokaw and various people say, people who are uncomfortable with the newness of this candidate.
Yeah.
It really pisses me off.
They want to know more about him.
Yeah. The euphemisms used for racism, I find tremendously insulting.
Well, the bad thing is now racists even have gotten politically correct. That's the...
Right.
So if you do, if you go out there and you talk to people, they won't even say, well, I'm not voting for him because he's black. They'll say, well, I really don't know where he...
Seems urban.
Yeah. Even the McCain-Palin slogan of "Country First," I think it's just a euphemism for people who don't have the middle name Hussein first. I really think that's what it means. What else would it mean? What is the distinction between what they're talking about and what Obama's talking about as it applies to the word country? Well, they're just sort of trying to put the idea in people's heads without saying it, that being that he's black, he isn't exactly what you think of when you think of our country. It's a very racist slogan, in my opinion.
Well, Jim, when you after you wrote that sketch that we saw part of, the one that pointed out how the media was, kind of giving Obama slightly preferential treatment, and then in the next debate, Hillary started the show by saying, does somebody want to offer, Senator Obama another pillow? And
right.
Well, then.
That was not the line from the piece.
I know. It was her own improv. But people came out of the woodwork basically accusing you of being pro-Hillary and of being anti-Obama. And what was that like? And then they were even on Huffington Post. People
it got more
saying
complicated
that
even than
that you
Adam
were
McCain.
A right-winger and
was a writer and director, and a friend of mine wrote this blog saying that I was a clever bank shot where I was trying to help McCain by getting Hillary the nomination, who was the weaker candidate, who would, as it happens, I think Hillary would have been a stronger candidate myself. A more sure candidate, like a blue chip stock as opposed to a tech stock, But although I think Obama's going to win, but actually I didn't really have a strong opinion. I just thought I don't understand why you can't at the same time love Obama. I think he's like the coolest guy who's ever run for president in my lifetime. But also acknowledge that the media loves him too, and that there is something this year that I've never seen before, which is a sort of feeling that this is bigger than an election. This is bigger than we can put our racial divide behind us. there's I mean, I grew up in Illinois, and I have contacts there. I mean, I don't think Barack Obama is particularly corrupt, certainly for a Chicago politician, but you cannot function in Chicago without, at least knowing very corrupt people, and he does,
Everyone turn off your camera phones right now, please. I'm trying to pull this one
I'm
out.
saying that there has, there was certainly in that period, I think they were waiting there's something about Hillary that the media just didn't like. They never liked, and strangely, but it was Bill Clinton who had done more, to mess things up. But he sort of got a pass, but they took it out on her. And there was it wasn't just when you'd watch Chris Matthews sort of, the way he would talk about Obama got kind of uncomfortable at times. Was so homoerotic, I thought. But with Hillary, there was a satisfaction. They loved. I mean, you saw it, and it wasn't just some of the MSNBC guys. And I thought it was kind of. But I didn't have. It wasn't like I was making a big, passionate statement. I just thought this was an interesting observation to make that I hadn't heard made in comedy.
Well, when it started, you went on some of the news shows to talk about it. And there were stories in the paper about the Hillary Obama thing. And Lorne Michaels told a couple of reporters. He said, no, we're nonpartisan. Whoever's in power, we're against them, and which is, a common position for someone who does satire. But I'm wondering how the rest of you feel. I mean, do you feel like you're just kind of out to kind of knock down the people with power, or is there a partisan element? Do you have a kind of a missionary feel behind what you do, try to make the world better and all that?
I don't think it's a matter of being partisan or being equal opportunity offenders either. I don't think that's a fair distinction. I think that comedy, if it's smart comedy, I mean, comedy can also just be, people getting kneed in the groin. That's quite funny as well. But if it's smart comedy about serious things, excuse me, I'm so sorry about my voice. Then what it is it's just all it is thinking. It's just thinking intelligently and pointing out the things that are stupid. Now, if someone is in power who you agree with more than someone else, there might be less stupid things that they would do. But I don't think there's anyone going to be elected, even the wonderful Barack Obama. I don't think there's going to be anyone elected who's not going to make any mistakes or do anything stupid. Our job is to point out things that are stupid and point out that they're funny, not to create arbitrary ways to make fun of people who don't deserve it. I just can't imagine a president not being embroiled in something stupid. So I think that's what it comes down to. I mean, if you're making an honest joke, you're making an honest joke about something real. You're not arbitrarily making up things to make fun of. That's what I think.
The whole idea of balance in satire is just the opposite of satire. I mean, it's like sometimes when I'll go on a TV show on CNN or somewhere, and they want to talk about, let's say, McCain or something, they'll say, and can you also bring, say, 4 funny things about Obama, too, just so that it's fair? And it's not fair because I personally, I mean, that may be balanced, but, if one person picks, for instance, if one person picks a vice president who's qualified and one picks a vice president who should be at the reception desk at the DoubleTree Inn, it's not fair to equate the two. It's balanced, but it's not fair.
So you turn these gigs down? What do you do?
No, I just go on and whore it up. I do. I can't do that thing where I say, now shifting gears from the other side. Although they will now just always say, and speaking as comedian and Obama supporter. I mean, it's just this whole thing, like everything has to be balanced, and that is really the death of comedy. I mean, it's sort of satire. You just can't.
What Andy just said reminds me of one of the smartest things I ever heard about that question, which was something that Stephen Colbert said, and that I believe Allison probably wrote. But it was when he said, reality has a well-known liberal bias. because liberal thinking is critical thinking, as opposed to that's what liberalism means. It means using rational thinking, and as opposed to being hidebound by tradition or dogma. And people who are dogmatic and call themselves liberals, they're not liberals. Liberalism involves critical thinking. So reality involves critical thinking. I mean, if you're looking honestly at reality.
I agree with a lot of what you said, but there is also there is also plenty of liberal orthodoxy that
that's what I'm saying.
That was artificially.
That's what I'm saying. When Clinton was in power, it wasn't like all us liberal comedians couldn't think of anything to make fun of, because liberal orthodoxy is just as deserving of mockery. And it's not like you're singling something out, trying to figure out a way to make fun of it. You just look at it, and the parts that are funny, you make a joke about it.
It's always it's always really interesting on our show when we make a joke about Obama, because you feel like, or if there's like an extended kind of riff on what he's doing, because the audience, is kind of in one particular direction, and you just feel like this paralysis descend on the audience, and they're like, I don't really know if I can laugh at this. I don't really find this funny. I'm not sure. Like, I know John Oliver, I mean, who's not with us today.
I wish he was here too, guys.
Oh God,
I'm sorry.
He I'll speak for him, because I know this was really hard on him at the Democratic convention. I mean, one of the jobs that he gave himself was to go out during Obama's big speech and mess people up. And he must have, I'm sure that they dreamed up that concept when nobody knew how monumental the event was going to be, because, we had this tour bus that was like remember the band Rat? Wow. It was the Rat tour bus. So we were all kind of like sitting on the Rat bus. And pitying him, because he had to go back into the stadium and mess with people while they were watching the speech, and there was such a reverence. And so in the end, he came back with almost nothing, because people were, people who weren't actually even in the stadium, but just in the kind of outlying areas, were watching it on television with like tears streaming down their faces, and it was like the Beatles. I mean, people were just in awe, and he kept, instead, because we have people yell at us all the time, and they're like, get away from him, But in this case, he was kind of messing around and standing in front of the TV, and people were like, why would you do that? Why? On this day would you do that? And there was just this quiet feeling of like, please don't mess with us. This is really our moment. And so he really came back. He was mortified, for one thing, for 2 hours
that
straight.
goes to show you can't really have a pre-existing agenda with satire. What you got to do is observe the reality and then make an honest joke about it.
Although I would say, I would so want to make fun of that kind of
stuff. Oh, I know.
And
but
it's the most fun thing. Oh God. Isn't it the most fun thing when you actually are confusing momentarily the audience and frustrating them, because wait a minute, am I sure I want to be laughing at this? But then they go and laugh anyway. Yeah. And there's no applause. It's just laughs, Right. So you don't have any wind at your back. You're sort of, I've been fired a couple times, and the funniest reason I ever got fired was because the head of our network was O.J. Simpson's best friend, and Norm Macdonald and I just did like 3 years of O.J. jokes. And I noticed at the beginning, people were kind of, wait a minute, he is black and he was accused of a crime, but just cheerfully going ahead and doing jokes about, we would do stuff like, this week of the trial, a witness suggested that Simpson might have been high on drugs and either crime, and indignant O.J. Denied it and said, a simple test of any of his blood found at the crime scene. and they would be like a hesitation of like, and then they'd laugh, and that was like the PC stuff. There was I remembered like a network executive was saying like, I think you might be hurting us with a segment of our audience. And I go, well, which segment would that be? And B, no, we're not, because people know he's guilty. People know he did it,
Oh, I thought he meant wife killers were going to tune you out. They buy a lot of products.
That's not going into a situation and applying a pre-existing agenda to it. That's just that's standing up for reality.
Could choke off comedy that should be done.
No,
that,
I'm just saying.
Factoring in, like, well, do we really want to be on that side of that?
It's just reality, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like,
sure.
You're finding the humor in the reality of the situation. And you got to admit, it is really funny that he murdered those people. but
thank you.
Well, look, at least he's stayed out of trouble since then.
No, but I'm just saying.
He's put his life together.
I'm just saying the reason that it is funny is because it's true. And, jokes that aren't true aren't funny. That's just a standard rule. It's not very complicated.
I'm sorry. I'm getting these time signals being waved at.
Okay.
They're invisible to all of you, I suppose. And I want to make sure that we can look at your PowerPoint.
Oh, sure.
Yeah,
let's throw that after 20 years of classic SNL. Let's have our little moment of onion humor. Boy, that's going to be
the White House.
Wonderful.
Okay. You can just.
Hillary Clinton tries to woo voters by rescinding her candidacy. The next one is Barack Obama Tiger Beat cover and slumber party vote. Now, again, I think that's an honest joke to make about Barack Obama.
Absolutely. Good.
And, number of sexual things candidates say now down to 4. I believe the last 4 are, one of them is these pancakes are great. Depressed candidate runs attack ad about self. That's and then Palin invades 9/11 firefighter cousin, reformed lesbian niece, naturalized Mexican half brother. Bill Clinton sadly folds his first lady dress back into the box. He was so looking forward to it. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Now, I know we want to be able to do some quick questions, but I wanted to ask Todd, because I was reading a clip about your meetings at the Onion. Is there anything, and there seemed to be a little disagreement in the staff, is there anything that you guys just don't touch? I mean, that's just in, just too...
I do think that there are certain topics that are not funny, ever, and that should just not jokes that should not be made. And I just wanted, this is why I brought out the gift pack from the New Yorker Festival. I don't know why they thought it would be funny to include this stuff. I mean, this is just not funny. You just don't make this joke. I don't know why they thought this would be funny to do this at the New Yorker. You'd think they would have learned better by now. No, nothing is off limits. Obviously, nothing is off limits.
All right.
And by the way, I thought that New Yorker cover was great. I did not think that you should need to explain your jokes to people who don't get them. If there was a rule that you have to explain jokes to people who don't get them, then boy, would we have hard jobs. Because it would be very, very difficult.
But it felt like it was necessary, or people felt it was necessary to explain the joke to people who did get it. They were the people who were upset, or people who did get it.
It was the base, yes, the base that was upset. That's right.
Well, I don't understand that.
I just thought it. I slightly disagree with. I just thought it was. You shouldn't farm the comedy out to the art department. It was my feeling.
Whoa!
No, but I'm just saying it seemed like I don't have any problem with
the New Yorker has the greatest tradition.
No, I meant. No, this is not the cartoon aspect of it. This is not a New York. That wasn't a New Yorker cartoon.
No,
it was just the. I don't know. The take on it was bound to be misinterpreted by people determined to be offended, and there are tons of those. And
I say fuck them if they can't take a joke.
By the way, it's easy to beat up on the New Yorker. The Economist has done many covers that are not funny at all. At all. Nothing.
We can continue.
They got nothing.
I didn't mean to hijack the conversation to talk about that one issue.
This part at a bar later. Thank you. Thank you all very much. And thank you.